China wants to sabotage India's economy. A bombshell new news report has revealed China's government is stopping advanced technology and talent from reaching India. For now, the focus is on derailing India's iPhone revolution, since technology giant Apple has ramped up iPhone production in India in recent years. China, which was once Apple's manufacturer of choice, wants to stop that from happening. But this isn't a one-off event. From solar panels to EV batteries, China is silently slapping restrictions that are stopping India from getting the industrial technology it needs. On this episode of Threadbare, we try to decode China's plan to undercut India's economic development. Why exactly is China so worried about India? What exactly is it doing to undermine India? And what can we do about it? Now, a lot of the story has to do with the report last week in technology publication Rest of World. It argues that Taiwanese contract manufacturer Foxconn has halted shipments of specialized equipment from China to iPhone factories in India. Chinese technical staff are also being stopped from going to India. And here's the really important point. The report suggests that China's government is responsible for these restrictions. Since the iPhone launched in 2007, Foxconn has been one of its main manufacturers, and many of its production facilities and supply chains are based in China. According to the South China Morning Post, a massive 85% of iPhones were manufactured in China just 2 years ago. But now that Chinese dominance is being threatened by India. In 2017, Apple began assembling older iPhone models in India through its Taiwanese contract manufacturer Wistron. However, Apple soon began shifting more and more iPhone assembly out of China to India. Part of the reason for this is that the American tech giant wants to reduce its exposure to China. The country's restrictive policies during COVID-19 hurt Apple's ability to make and sell iPhones. At the same time, political tensions between the United States and China began rising sharply. Political repression of both Chinese and foreign companies by China's government has also increased sharply in recent years. So, in 2020, Apple announced plans to shift more iPhone production to India. It would do this through contract manufacturers like the Taiwanese companies we've talked about, Foxconn, Wistron, and Pegatron. Now, this production has made rapid progress. In 2022, 15 million iPhones were assembled in India, and in 2024, around 14% of all iPhones made globally were assembled in India. And Apple reportedly has plans to ramp up that production. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal in fact suggested that 25% of all iPhones could be made in India soon. Now, experts say that China has been surprised by how quickly Apple and its manufacturers have increased iPhone production in India. Another thing to remember here is that over the last few years, China's economy has not been doing too well. Growth is down, youth unemployment is up, the population is aging, and foreign investors are jittery about putting more money into China. Many foreign and Chinese firms want to explore alternative markets as the cost of doing business in China rises. But China's government has been worried about losing manufacturing to countries like India. Apple's plans to shift a large part of its iPhone production abroad is exactly the kind of thing that Beijing wants to stop. And so, China has started quietly placing restrictions on the technology, materials, and talent that India can access. Former Foreign Secretary and Ambassador to China, Vijay Gokhale, has already rung alarm bells about the situation. The greater concern going forward ought to be the surreptitious manner by which China is applying industrial sanctions. It stems from their anxiety that India seeks to replace them as the next global manufacturing center, an anxiety exacerbated by the successful transition of Apple to India. China wants India to be an integral part of its own supply chain, rather than a substitute for it, wrote Ambassador Gokhale in a recent article for India Today. And India's iPhone sector isn't the only area subject to these shadow industrial sanctions. Take electrical vehicles, for example. According to one report, China's Ministry of Commerce reportedly met with several leading automakers in July 2024 and asked them not to make auto-related investments in India. Bloomberg reported that Beijing was interested in protecting its electric vehicle sector knowledge and didn't want to lose this to India. Once again, quoting from Ambassador Gokhale, the export of key industrial machinery, such as tunnel boring machinery, which is critical for infrastructure or offshore oil drilling equipment, has faced what one foreign dignitary described as extraordinary circumstances, with China's customs authorities hindering deliveries to India. There are other sectors like pharmaceuticals, solar energy, electric vehicles, and critical minerals where China's policies have proved damaging to India. Now, this is a serious concern given how dominant China has become in particular sectors that matter to India's economy. It's also a really complex problem. For example, India has pushed back in the past by slapping anti-dumping duties on Chinese solar manufacturers for predatory pricing. However, soon after, Indian solar manufacturers raised concerns since they are dependent on Chinese equipment and could be hit by price rises. So, what exactly can India do to counter this complex problem? Well, one good idea is working with international partners to cut dependence on China for critical components or materials. For example, India joined the International Mineral Security Partnership in 2023 to do exactly this. There are another bunch of good ideas. Once again, quoting Ambassador Vijay Gokhale, project-specific collaboration with developed countries who face similar challenges arising from the denial of Chinese technology, especially in green growth sectors, is the need of the hour. India's relationship with Russia should be leveraged too, given its vast rare earths resources in the extraction and refining of nickel and cobalt. Also, India needs to use its large market as leverage by making clear to China that its companies cannot have access to the Indian market if China chooses to restrict top talent and technology from reaching India. Managing China's economic challenge will not be easy, but the consequences of China's economic sabotage are too large for India to ignore. Thanks for watching Threadbare with me, Shashank Mattu. You can catch this show again next week on India Today Global.